Alright, so I wanted to do a real talk about my opinions on the Hulk not getting any future movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm completely doing this off the hip. So, we're going to go back in time and talk about the Incredible Hulk movie that came out in 2008, I believe. Let me fact check here really quickly. It came out in 2008, June 8th, 2008. And the problem with this movie was that, there were a lot of development hurdles behind the scenes. Edward Norton, he really wasn't feeling the character. He wasn't feeling the script. He was having problems on set working with the guys at Universal. And then the Hulk's movie license changed, but that's not before the Incredible Hulk only barely made back its box office budget with $263 million. Now, let's fast forward a little bit to the Avengers. The Hulk was in mostly all the Avengers movies. You see Bruce Banner there in mostly all of those movies. And he has also been relegated to a side character in Thor Ragnarok. So you must be thinking to yourself, if there's 3 Thor movies, 2 of them have been pretty much panned by like critics. And the fans say, Thor 1 is okay. Thor the Dark World is ass a little bit. It makes no sense at the end. I saw the end where it's like everyone was teleporting everywhere, things were going crazy. It seemed like it really didn't have any focus. And then Ragnarok came back and brought the series into a positive state, albeit it put in way too many jokes. So how can Thor get 3 movies but the Hulk can't? I do believe there is that notion where people believe that the Hulk cannot run on his own accord when it comes to a solo movie. A lot of people think that, well, if you watch a Hulk movie, people are going to want the wanton destruction. They're going to want to see the Incredible Hulk on screen all the time. And that's not really the case to me as a true comic book fan. I think if they made something deep, they don't have to do a retread of the Hulk movie that came out in 2003, because what happened with that movie was they tried to make it a very solid character piece. Excuse my phone, by the way. But they tried to make it a very solid character piece of Bruce Banner, and what happened was that movie just had some really flaky pacing, and the movie was just boring. Ang Lee really tried to make this movie way more deep than it was, and I understand setting up the expositional pieces for the characters to interact with Banner and all this stuff regarding his transformation, really caring about not hurting the people he loves like Betty Ross. But the problem here is it takes way too long to get from point A to point B, and that's why the movie really dragged. And of course, don't forget about the comic transitions that really was jarring to look at with that movie. So the editing was sloppy and ass, and it's something that some Hulk fans really get behind the 2003 Hulk movie, but others just really see it as throwaway, too long, too boring. And when I think about the Incredible Hulk, when I think about the deep complexity of Bruce Banner really loathing and despising the fact that he is this monster inside, then boring is not something that I would associate with them trying to do something deep for this character. People probably won't take a risk because they think there's one subset of people that want to come to the movies to see the Hulk destroy shit, but at the same time, they don't think they can hold a solid character piece about the man becoming a monster, having a backstory behind it. To which I would say that's a poor excuse, because I think there can be good quality control if the script was written correctly, it was written really good, and if they really just flowed from scene to scene with some very consistent pacing of action and drama and suspense. The Hulk is pretty much just, Marvel's version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. When you think about it, in essence, the seeds have already been planted, so I don't know why Kevin Feige won't take a risk. I think it's because there's so much stuff going on with the MCU in terms of Phase 3. They're prepping for Phase 4. They couldn't shoehorn in Inhumans into Phase 3 because that was like sat in their lap and they had to deal with it. So Kevin Feige, before the transition to Marvel Studios, he was totally disinterested and he had to drop that out of the slate. So I don't think that a solo Hulk movie would probably fit his common interest, because he did say things about a solo Hulk movie, you know, not possibly happening, which is a huge disappointment. But I think that it can. I think that Marvel has enough clout, they have enough budget to make back 10 times how much they made during the Incredible Hulk. I mean, at this point, money is really just money to burn when it comes to Marvel, because they have been making nearly billion-dollar franchises all established in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If you want my advice on what I think should be in a solo Hulk movie, just go back to basics and blend in the fact that you have action and that you have a compelling script. So Banner is written to be a tragically flawed character, and that resonates whenever he turns into the Hulk. It's never a good thing when this man transforms, because there is total chaos and destruction, and I think the movie could really play up and ratchet up the emotions whenever Banner decides to get angry in a situation. I mean, there was small little hints of this, small rays of light of what happened in a flashback scene in the Incredible Hulk movie where Banner hurt Betty. Imagine if that scene was really well done, acted, well illustrated. Imagine if you have something where you feel for these characters. It's not just about wanton destruction, but wanton destruction being a cause of consequence for the characters. And I think if they worked on something to that magnitude, they would have something compelling. It wouldn't just be giant green man destroys a fucking building 24/7 over and over again. I mean, I love seeing good action scenes in Hulk movies, but I personally think that there needs to be a combination of good drama and good action, and you will have something worthwhile. I also wanted to say that, you know, don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to get weird sometimes, because when you do, you have the compelling nature to create something that could be a good liberty. I mean, recently they did some good liberties with the Punisher show with one of the villains. I'm not going to spoil it, but it was a pretty good backstory. So I would suppose you could do something like that for the villain. Maybe make the leader, the guy with a giant brain head or whatever, you know, he tends to have these psionic powers that he uses against Bruce Banner. You know, include people that Banner really cares about the most as the core central of the plot. Make it a personal story of redemption. Make it a personal story of, you know, all these mixed human emotions of, you know, being depressed, sad, you know, angry, and just put it all into the forefront. I know they tried with the previous movies, but once again, the pacing was just a knockdown, drag out slog, and it's something not worth sitting through for at least a good bulk of the original Incredible Hulk movie. Despite Ang Lee really trying his best here, that movie definitely had flaws. Even the Hulk movie that came out in the MCU, it had flaws going, you know, more action over and over and over again. And I really didn't feel for Bruce Banner that much outside of his occasional humane grips with reality when it came to Betty Ross. Like, I'm not saying that these Hulk movies in particular didn't have the self-conflict there, but it feels like a character of his own that needs to be explored, especially for a lot of literary value, with the plot itself being the main drive. And I think this is really what boils down to who Bruce Banner is. What he embodies is pretty much something practically very reasonable. He's just a man who wants to be rid of this curse. He's a man who wants to be normal. This is not a unrelatable goal with this character. So this is just me bantering about preconceived notions of people saying that, you know, I won't go see a Hulk movie unless there's wanton destruction. I can understand appealing to both sides, making Banner a flawed and tragic character. He has a lot of guilt behind him, which is some of the things that happens in the Return of the Monster story arc, where it's not mostly about the Hulk, but a good focus of that comic is about Bruce Banner. What happens when he's in so many dangerous situations? What happens when he's stabbed in the back by so many people he wants to trust? And I think that conspiracy thread really works best for this character. Action scenes are great too. Have a little bit of both, have variety, and make sure if you do implement them, make sure there is an imminent danger instead of two CGI giant roided up men punching each other in the face. I mean, at a certain point, if you do include action and it's not really going anywhere, it doesn't set up for anything, then it feels pointless. An action scene can have consequence. Someone could die, something could change. Something could change for the worst. Keep that in mind. I really am hoping that they do change their mind. They do decide to reconsider in the future and maybe throw the Hulk at least one more sequel. I think at this rate he really deserves it, and that would be really cool. But there's nothing wrong either with seeing him in more side content like the Avengers and stuff like that. I just think that it's unfortunate that if there is these preconceived notions that they can't make something interesting with the Banner and Hulk character, that he's going to be shuffled into side movies forever. But you know, I'm just giving wishful thinking here. I think the future of the Hulk movies, I think it might stay the way it is, but Phase 4 could possibly surprise us. You never know, because that film slate is not completed. Universal did budge, but behind the scenes, apparently Universal are being dicks about the Hulk license. So I would put that as maybe cautiously optimistic for it, but I'm not really counting my chickens way too soon. So unfortunately, there may not be a solo Hulk movie in the future, but a man can dream and a man can hope that they adapt something really, really awesome for us to see. They did it with Planet Hulk, so they can always do it again. I feel as though if they just cut off the Hulk with the Hulk 2008 movie that came out in the MCU, then it practically says they only set up the Hulk to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe with no long-term plans of the sort. Until then, this is Renegade Operative signing off. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to talk about my thoughts on what I would want from a Hulk movie, what I would like to see if they did go back and decide to open up the door. But for now, the Hulk is just a side character, so it's kind of wishful thinking at this rate on my part. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you take care, and as always, peace out.